now we're going to take a look at a couple of the most underrated players that I think. I'm going to take a look at a couple of guys at all the main positions, the quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, running back spots, and give you guys who have typically have average draft prices well above or pick 100, and as such, you're not going to find them being great players necessarily game in, game out, but if you're going to really try and hit the lottery with one of these guys, I think you're going to have much more success with some of these guys than other ones that would be drafted even earlier. Starting at the quarterback position, my first one is Sam Bradford of the Rams. Bradford, the pick number 148 is his average draft position. He's got more weapons than the Rams have ever given him. Tavon Austin is there now as a wide receiver. Givens is still back there. He's got Jared Cook, formerly of the Titans, on his team, and that gives him his first solid tight end position that he's had. This is a quarterback that's not going to be a terrific player, as I said. He's probably in that 16, 17, 18 range as far as quarterbacks go. But again, as a flyer or as a guy who's going to make a one-time start for you on a bye week, certainly can do more than hold his own, given how far out he is. In fact, in a lot of drafts, he's barely going to be drafted. Carson Palmer, who I like even more as my second choice, is underrated at the quarterback spot. Way too much talent at wide receiver for the Cardinals. You've got Michael Floyd, you've got Andre Roberts, you've got Larry Fitzgerald. The running game isn't that good. Now, if Palmer can stay healthy, he does not have a great offensive line in Arizona, then Palmer certainly should be able to at least match last year's numbers of 4,000 yards passing and more. He had something like 20 touchdowns last year. He could easily end up with 24, 25 and sneak into that top 10 range. And for a guy who's going at pick 151, that's a terrific draft value if you can get him. At wide receiver, I've got Brandon LaFell. LaFell is not a terrific guy, but he is a starter, and he is going at 184 as an average draft price or position, which tells you he's way, way, way down deep in the draft if he's ever drafted at all. Basically, he's only drafted in the deepest of leagues. He's still going to catch a few passes. He's going to catch a few touchdown passes. He's not as good as Greg Olsen or Steve Smith, but the Panthers are going to get him the ball more often than a lot of guys who are going to be taken in front of him, such as the Vikings and Cordero Patterson, who's a rookie out of Tennessee. And he's in a much better situation in Carolina than someone like Patterson is in the Vikings from a quarterback standpoint. Another guy to look at is Greg Little of the Browns. I've belittled Greg Little often because he's one of those guys that seems to catch 4 or 5 touchdown passes, 700 yards, which is kind of fantasy death in most cases. But for a guy who's going, again, as a starter at pick 182, there's a lot worse players out there that are going to have significantly worse stats that people are actually drafting. So not a great quarterback situation in Cleveland, but they don't have a whole lot. And when they throw the ball, it's him and Josh Gordon, and that's basically it. And so I would look for Greg Little to be a good value play there. At running back, you've got Pierre Thomas. Again, the Saints don't have a great running game. Mark Ingram might carry the ball more on the goal line, but Thomas is going to get his share of carries. And this is a guy that is, again, pretty much a 50-50 running back that's being taken at draft position 156. And I think he's just a better player than that. Again, you should take him ahead of somebody like a Michael LaShore who's being drafted ahead of him, or some of these other second or more like third and fourth tier running backs that are out there. Another guy to look at, and I like him again even more than I like Pierre Thomas, is Danny Woodhead. Woodhead's going at pick 147 for the Chargers. He left the Patriots. The Chargers have very little around him. Ryan Matthews is mostly a bust. The other guy they have is Ronnie Brown. So Woodhead's going to get some carries on the goal line. He's going to be a guy used out of the backfield on the goal line. He's going to catch a lot of passes. So in PPR leagues, he's even got more value. Someone I think who could easily rush for 700 yards and probably catch 40 passes, get himself 6-7 touchdowns on the year. And again, if you can get him at pick 147, that's a lot better than taking someone like Fred Jackson or even a Ben Tate, unless you're doing a handcuff. That's just not a great value, and Woodhead will provide a lot more spark than someone like Tate would. At tight end, I got two guys as well. Tyler Eifert, who I actually have in the top 150, actually is being drafted in the 169 spot. He is going to be a guy that's going to help Andy Dalton a lot. He's a better receiver than Gresham is. He's got terrific hands. He's got A.J. Green to pull off some of the pressure off of him. They've got a couple of good running backs in Green Ellis and Giovanni Bernard. And I think Tyler Eifert is going to be a terrific tight end, put up maybe Greg Olsen, Kyle Chandler type of numbers, and for a guy that you can pick up 60 picks later than either of those guys. And the other guy I like is Fred Davis, tight end of the Redskins. Davis kind of got lost for Washington. A lot of people talked him up, and all of a sudden he just wasn't that good with a couple of injuries. He's looking better this year as far as his health is concerned. He's still going to catch passes from RG3. I don't think Griffin's going to run the ball as much. I don't think Alfred Morris is going to be as effective running the ball either, although I think Morris is still a solid running back. And Davis, given the weak wide receiver position in Washington, is primed to be the biggest beneficiary of all this happening in Washington, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up numbers, again, similar to a Greg Olsen, maybe a Kyle Chandler again of the Vikings. One of those second tier, maybe even a Vernon Davis if everything came out right. And again, you're going to get him 70 picks later than you would someone like Vernon Davis. And those are my looks at some of the underrated players in the fantasy draft this year. Next, I'll do some of the overrated players.